Have you ever seen Jesus? I know a man that did. I used to teach in Mansfield, Texas, back when the district was up and coming. It eventually went into full bloom, and that's about the time that I retired from that district. But Mansfield was a relatively small town at one point before it became a larger city incorporated into the Metroplex. And there was a homeless man there in Mansfield that was sitting outside of McDonald's on the bench outside. And he had been through really a lot in his life, and he had lost absolutely everything. And this was really due to no fault of his own. This was true homelessness, not drug abuse or anything like that. It was all circumstance. There are many people in this country that when they lose their health, they lose everything. And so this man was at one of his lowest points, sitting there on the bench one evening at McDonald's, and he happened to look up at the bench after contemplating things about his life. He looked at the bench across from him, and sitting on that bench across from him was our Savior, Jesus Christ, manifested there as an apparition. And though he didn't say anything to him, and he eventually dissipated and vanished, what the man realized, what was communicated to him, and this was all he needed, is that despite his circumstances and how bad it was, Jesus was still with him, and he was taking care of him. So we need to think about that when it comes to material goods. And so we are on chapter 6 in book 1 of the Imitation of Christ, of confused feelings. Whenever a person becomes obsessed with success and material things, he quickly becomes restless. The proud and greedy never rest. The poor and humble in spirit rest in great peace. Anyone who is not completely free from the grip of his own vanity is easily tempted and is toppled by small, trifling things. A person who is weak in spirit and who is still controlled by his need to be important has great trouble dragging himself away from the things that most attract him in this world. Such a person is unhappy when he does restrain himself, yet his anger flares up if anyone stands in his way. What is more, if he does get what he wants, he is at once stricken by a heavy conscience because he is given into his weakness. In no way does this lead to peace. In resisting such temptations, then, does one find true peace of heart, not in being a slave to them. There is no peace in the heart of a slave, nor in someone who is driven to continually bustling about in the world. Only a spiritual person, a person aglow with God's love, finds true peace. And so, though this homeless man in Mansfield had lost everything, what a peaceful moment to know that God has communicated himself to you in such a way as to show himself to you, because he understands the suffering you're going through. But that suffering has purpose, because if it wasn't for the sufferings that God does give us, we might fall into some serious sin, especially if it comes to having too many material goods. Those people that are always seemingly doing so well and have everything they could ever want, in their life seems to be picture perfect, very oftentimes have no peace, even though their life seems like the American dream. It's important to remember that sometimes God does not send suffering to some people because they might be reprobate. There may be no saving them. They may have abused God's grace so much that He's not bothered by trying to call them back with some suffering, be it small or large. And always remember that Jesus suffered on the cross, and He was perfect. He was sinless. He was the spotless Lamb. And so we have to remember, even in our most difficult suffering, that if it was good enough for the Master, it's good enough for us. After all, He was spotless, but He came here to prove His love for us and to save us from our sin. And we should be forever grateful for that.